Flip Out with Flip Wilson.
We gonna cook.
Have a laugh with your favorite funny man and his wild character.
After I get here to talk over the arrangements which your producer knew early today, I was a little disgusted, I have to admit. I like your show and I like your style, but your pay is so cheap, I won't be back for a while.
Sam, that's really cold. You suggest I take Ralph for a walk, then while I'm gone, you try to steal my show.
I wasn't trying to steal the show.
You know what I think your problem is?
What?
You can imitate so many performers so well that sometimes I think you forget who you are.
Flip Wilson revealed the 7 guests who were actually evil. In the middle of the 1970s chaos, Flip's variety show became a rare escape. It was funny, sharp, and unlike anything on television.
Laugh to your lips, or even make you cry. And I feel I've accomplished what I've been put on this earth for.
Check, please.
Week after week, he shared the stage with America's biggest names. But not every guest brought lighthearted laughter. Some carried controversy, danger, even whispers of darkness.
Well, my line is just overloaded.
Yeah, you do look a little plugged up. Well, that's why I'm here, to help you lighten your load.
Looking back, fans still debate which appearances crossed the line. And it all begins with one figure who was both loved and feared. When Muhammad Ali walked onto Flip Wilson's stage, the air shifted instantly. He was not just another guest. He was a heavyweight champion, a global icon, and one of the most divisive figures in America at the time. Ali's mere presence on television was loaded with meaning. To his fans, he was a hero who stood tall against racism, who refused to fight in Vietnam, who represented black pride and resistance in an era of oppression. But to others, especially in the establishment, Ali was seen as dangerous, even unpatriotic. On Flip's show, Ali's charisma was undeniable. He was funny, witty, and quick with his famous rhymes. The crowd laughed and clapped, hanging on every word. Yet beneath the humor was a man many Americans feared. Some conspiracy-minded fans even say that when Ali appeared with Flip, it was more than just entertainment. It was a statement. 2 black men on national television, laughing in the face of the system, was something that rattled executives and politicians alike.
Mind you, and in my opinion, you are the greatest, honey. I don't care what anybody say, you the greatest. Next to Geraldine.
Ali's evil, if you want to call it that, came from how much he unsettled people. He was bold about race. He was unapologetic about refusing the draft. He talked about religion, about power, about justice, at a time when comedians were supposed to keep things light. Ali broke those rules just by being himself. Lots of fans think that Ali used the Flip Wilson stage to send messages that the mainstream media tried to silence. Even though nothing was proven, all evidence suggests the network was nervous every time he came on. It was impossible to know what Ali would say, and that unpredictability gave him an almost dangerous edge.
A little short poem, and it goes like this. Joe's gonna come out smoking, and I ain't gonna be joking. I'll be pecking and a-poking, pouring water on his smoking. And this might shock and amaze you, but I retired Joe Frazier.
The internet today is full of theories about those appearances. Some say Flip and Ali had an unspoken bond, that they knew they were playing with fire every time they cracked jokes together. Others believe Ali's presence was a direct challenge to the sanitized version of America television wanted to sell. It is not confirmed, but all evidence points toward Ali being one of the most controversial guests the show ever featured. To the audience at home, Ali was a paradox. He could make you laugh, then make you squirm. He could charm you with a smile, then shake you with the truth. That mix of humor and threat, of entertainment and disruption, is why so many now look back and call Ali's appearances on Flip Wilson's show truly evil.
Watch out, Joe! You in trouble, bro. I gotta go. I'm gonna see. Ooh, this is dangerous. We'll see y'all in a little while. I'm getting out of here.
Coming up next, Flip invited a man whose comedy was so raw and so real that even network censors could not contain him. Richard Pryor. If Muhammad Ali's presence on Flip Wilson's show made executives nervous, Richard Pryor's appearances made them downright terrified. Pryor was not like any comedian America had seen before. He was raw, unfiltered, and brutally honest. Where Flip Wilson's comedy often walked the line of family-friendly charm, Pryor smashed through it with both fists. And when he sat across from Flip or shared a sketch with him, viewers could feel the tension. Something real was happening, something that television in the early 1970s was not prepared to handle. Richard Pryor was known for bringing the uglier sides of life onto the stage. Poverty, racism, police brutality. He did not just joke about them, he lived them.
Now that boy's a junkie. See him in the middle of the street? Look at him. He trying to direct traffic.
By the time he appeared with Flip, he was already developing a reputation as both a genius and a loose cannon. Some say his unpredictability was why the networks resisted giving him his own primetime space. On Flip's show, though, Pryor had room to be himself, and that self was dangerous to the comfort of middle America.
Say, Junior, get out of the street! What's happening, old dude? I'm directing the traffic, baby!
Lots of fans think that Pryor's appearances with Flip were some of the most important moments in television history. They were watching two black comedians, one polished and suited, the other raw and unchained, side by side. Even though nothing was proven, all evidence suggests the censors had their scissors ready every time Pryor opened his mouth. He was simply too real, too sharp, too willing to call things out.
I said, God, you are the chairman of the board, and I'm merely a rousing young executive. I said, God, I need a little help.
This was Pryor's evil, not in a literal sense, but in how he unsettled the system. His words were like a mirror America did not want to look into. Conspiracy-minded fans often say Pryor used comedy as a weapon, exposing truths in front of millions that the media tried to bury. It is not confirmed, but all evidence points toward him deliberately using Flip's platform as a way to smuggle radical honesty into prime time. And Flip? He knew exactly what was happening. Sometimes you can catch him glancing at the audience as if to say, "Can you believe this guy just said that on NBC?" The laughter that followed was not always comfortable. It was sharp, broken by silence, then erupting again as if people were unsure whether they were even allowed to laugh. Pryor thrived on that. The internet went crazy years later when clips of Pryor resurfaced online. Fans debated whether the network truly understood the risk of letting him on stage. Some say Flip took the chance because he respected Pryor's honesty. Others believe Flip wanted to protect him, giving him a safer stage where Pryor could push the edge without being completely banned.
Dude, Junior, you got a white folks complex. That's right, you don't know how to deal with the white man. I know how to deal with him. That's why I'm in the position I'm in today.
Richard Pryor's legacy proves just how sharp that edge was. He went on to shape stand-up comedy forever, becoming the blueprint for generations that followed. But in the early 70s, sitting on Flip Wilson's couch, he was seen by many as dangerous, evil, in the sense that his comedy was almost too real for primetime, too raw to be contained, too bold to be safe. And just when the audience thought they had seen the wildest guest possible, Flip brought on a performer whose sly humor cut just as deep, though in a quieter, almost more unsettling way. Up next, Lily Tomlin. Lily Tomlin may not seem like the obvious choice for a list of Flip Wilson's most evil guests. She did not shout like Ali. She did not curse like Pryor. She wasn't a rebellious athlete or a radical activist. But make no mistake, when Lily Tomlin stepped onto Flip Wilson's stage, She brought with her a style of comedy that cut through authority like a knife hidden behind a smile. Tomlin's humor was sly, satirical, and deceptively simple. She created characters like Ernestine, the telephone operator, or Edith Ann, the precocious child, that at first glance seemed innocent. But listen closely, and you realized she was exposing the absurdities of bureaucracy, the cruelty of corporations, and the hypocrisy of social norms. To conservative audiences in the 1970s, that kind of satire felt threatening. To executives, it felt downright dangerous.
It is a crime, under both federal and state law, to use a phone for annoying or harassing purposes.
Lots of fans think Tomlin's appearances with Flip carried a hidden weight. She was not just doing sketches. She was smuggling social commentary into a variety show that was supposed to be lighthearted. Even though nothing was proven, all evidence suggests that network censors had to watch her closely. The way she made audiences laugh at big institutions, the phone company, the government, the media, was almost subversive. It was evil in the sense that it exposed flaws people preferred to ignore.
And your agents have indulged in the illegal and unfair practice of wiretapping. Over listening to other people's conversations. How do I know? From listening to your calls, that's how I know.
What made Tomlin even more unsettling for television at the time was her refusal to play the role expected of women in comedy. She was not glamorous. She was not there to be a sidekick. She came out in odd costumes, spoke in strange voices, and demanded attention through wit instead of looks. Some conspiracy theories reveal that Tomlin's very presence on Flip's show was an act of rebellion, that she symbolized a changing culture where women no longer accepted being pushed to the background. Flip, to his credit, gave her room. You can see in their interactions that he respected her sharpness. He laughed genuinely at her characters, even when the humor carried a sting. The internet went crazy years later when clips resurfaced showing Tomlin's Ernestine mocking the power of the phone company. In hindsight, it felt like a warning about surveillance and corporate overreach, things people are still worried about today. Tomlin's evil was not loud. It was quiet, witty, and disguised behind silly voices. But that made it more powerful. She got audiences to laugh at things they were not supposed to question. And in an era where women were often dismissed in comedy, her boldness stood out as a challenge.
Type, honey, you need a woman with fire. Woo! Don't fight the feeling.
So, while Muhammad Ali brought danger through defiance, and Richard Pryor through raw honesty, Lily Tomlin's edge came from her intelligence. She made people laugh at the very systems that controlled their lives, and to many that was its own kind of evil. Coming up next, Flip invited a man whose wild lifestyle and scandalous reputation made headlines across America. A football star who lived larger than life and seemed far too wild for primetime TV. Joe Namath. When Joe Namath, also known as Broadway Joe, appeared on Flip Wilson's stage, it was like inviting a storm in a tailored suit. He wasn't just a football player. He was a cultural figure who embodied the chaos and excess of the 1970s. Where other athletes tried to stay clean-cut and respectable, Namath leaned into his reputation as a party-loving, hard-drinking, woman-chasing superstar.
Your type, honey, you need a woman with fire. Woo! Don't fight the feeling.
On family-friendly television, that aura of scandal made him one of the most controversial guests Flip ever welcomed.
Why don't you have lunch with me?
What? Me have lunch with you? With your reputation?
Namath was a Super Bowl hero, the man who boldly guaranteed victory for the underdog New York Jets, and then delivered it. But his fame didn't stop on the football field. He owned nightclubs. He wore fur coats and flashy jewelry, He dated actresses and models, often showing up in gossip columns more than sports pages. Lots of fans think that when he sat next to Flip, he wasn't just a guest, he was a walking headline. Even though nothing was proven, all evidence suggests network executives worried about his image. Namath represented a lifestyle that parents didn't want their kids emulating. He smoked, he drank, and he lived unapologetically. Some conspiracy theories reveal that his appearances were carefully managed, that producers tried to keep him light and funny, steering him away from stories about his nights out or business dealings. But Namath was unpredictable. You never knew when he'd slip in something that pushed too far.
Broadway Joe, playboy of the Western world. Woo!
Oh, wow, you've heard of me, huh? You must be a football fan.
No, I'm not a football fan. I'm a man fan.
His evil, in the playful sense this list implies, came from how much he shook the image of what an American hero was supposed to be. Up until Namath, athletes were often polished, reserved, and presented as role models. Joe didn't care about being a role model. He cared about being himself. That rebellious streak scared the establishment. It also made him magnetic to the public. The internet today still digs up old clips of Namath with Flip. You can see the charisma dripping off him. Flip plays the straight man, holding the jokes together, while Namath struts through every line with confidence. It wasn't just comedy, it was theater. And beneath it was the sense that this was a man who lived on the edge, who carried temptation into every room he entered. Some fans look back and say Namath represented the darker side of fame, the side that showed athletes could be as reckless and wild as rock stars. Others argue that Flip brought him on precisely because he knew the contrast would be entertaining. The clean-cut set, the family-friendly tone, interrupted by a man who looked like he'd just come from an after-hours party in Manhattan.
Anyway, he said he'd be in the booth, in the back, in the corner, in the dark.
That was Namath's brand of evil. Not criminal, not violent, but indulgent. He made conservative viewers uncomfortable because he lived in a way that ignored their rules. And on Flip Wilson's stage, that edge was impossible to ignore. Coming up next, Flip invited another athlete. But this one wasn't known for parties or gossip columns. He was known for power, intimidation, and an uncompromising stance that shook Hollywood and America alike. Up next is Jim Brown. When Jim Brown walked onto the Flip Wilson show, the entire energy in the room shifted. Unlike Joe Namath's swagger or Richard Pryor's edgy wit, Brown carried himself with an intensity that could not be ignored. He wasn't just a football legend, he was already a myth in motion, the man who redefined the running back position and then left the game at the peak of his powers to conquer Hollywood. For many viewers, he was one of the most controversial figures Flip ever sat beside. Jim Brown's own kind of evil was rooted in intimidation. He wasn't afraid to look directly into the camera and challenge America to deal with uncomfortable truths. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, Brown had become more than just an athlete. He was outspoken about race, social justice, and power structures that held people back. Lots of fans think that when he appeared on Flip's stage, it wasn't just entertainment. It was confrontation hidden inside of variety TV.
Your heart is not over here.
It ain't?
Your heart is over there. But if you want your heart over here, I can arrange it.
But Brown wasn't all fire and seriousness. Flip knew how to bring out the lighter side of his guests. In one famous sketch, Jim played the role of a no-nonsense coach trying to whip Flip into shape with ridiculous drills. Flip exaggerated every stumble, every mistake, while Jim stood towering above him, barking orders with a straight face. The audience roared. Some conspiracy theories reveal that this sketch was designed to soften Brown's image, to make him appear approachable. And it worked. His natural authority made the comedy even funnier, but the edge never left.
To show you why I don't deserve a girl like Gloria.
Yeah, this is my stash. Everybody got a stash. Yes, they do.
Off the stage, Brown's life was full of contradictions. Even though nothing is proven, all evidence suggests that his reputation carried whispers of volatility. Fans argued over whether he was a hero standing up for his people or a man too harsh for mainstream America. Some believed his Hollywood career choices, often playing tough, sometimes violent characters, reflected who he was in real life. Others said it was just acting, but the blurring of those lines made him a lightning rod. Flip Wilson's brilliance was that he never shied away from the tension. He leaned into it. He let Brown speak his truth, whether about football, race, or celebrity, while using humor to keep the atmosphere light. Their chemistry wasn't about friendship or easy laughter. It was about respect. Flip gave Brown the space to be powerful, and Brown gave Flip's audience moments they would never forget.
You know, if you rush, you could meet her at the airport. Here, give her this note. A friend in need is a friend indeed.
Lots of fans today still talk about how unusual it was to see Jim Brown in that setting. Variety shows were supposed to be harmless fun, but Brown brought gravity. He brought seriousness. Some conspiracy theories reveal that certain NBC executives wanted to limit his appearances, worried that he might say something too bold for prime time. But Flip had a gift for balancing risk and reward, and that's why Brown became one of his most unforgettable guests. By the end of his appearances, audiences felt both entertained and uneasy. Jim Brown was a guest who left questions hanging in the air. Was he there to make you laugh? To intimidate you? To challenge you? Maybe all of it at once, and that's why he earned his spot among the 7 actually evil. But Flip wasn't done pushing boundaries. If Jim Brown brought intensity, the next guests brought fearlessness and charm in equal measure. Together, they shook the stage with laughter, music, and controversy. Up next are Moms Mabley and Sammy Davis Jr. By the time Moms Mabley graced the Flip Wilson show, she was already a pioneer, a comedy veteran whose career stretched back to the Chitlin Circuit and Harlem's Apollo Theater. She was a grandmotherly figure with a sly grin and an even sharper tongue. But behind the gentle appearance was comedy that cut deep into race, gender, and class. On Flip's stage, Moms Mabley proved that she wasn't afraid to touch nerves, and that's why some fans put her in the category of actually evil.
Well, honey, this ain't my style. No. Honey, nothing's your style. We just trying to fake it.
Mom's humor didn't walk the safe line. She leaned right into taboos that other comedians wouldn't even whisper about on network television. She joked about inequality, politics, and even her views on love in ways that made audiences gasp before laughing. Lots of fans think that her willingness to confront social hypocrisies in prime time was dangerous for the establishment, even though nothing is proven. Some conspiracy theories reveal that executives considered cutting her lines, afraid they might be too provocative. But Flip Wilson, who understood the power of comedy as social truth, gave her the space to let it rip.
Is it true that blondes have more fun? Not in my neighborhood.
Her stage presence was one of duality. She looked sweet, almost harmless, but the words she spoke carried fire. That was the beauty of Moms Mabley. She could dress a critique of society in a joke, and people would laugh while realizing she had just exposed something serious. On Flip's stage, that kind of comedy was groundbreaking. It wasn't just about laughs, it was about reflection. And then came Sammy Davis Jr., a man whose life story was itself a storm of controversy, charisma, and talent. By the time he sat on Flip's couch, Sammy was one of the biggest stars in America. He could sing, dance, act, and joke with the best of them. But beyond his dazzling performances, Davis carried the weight of a complicated public image. His interracial marriage in the 1960s to Swedish actress May Britt sparked outrage in parts of America. His friendships ranging from Frank Sinatra to politicians raised eyebrows. Some fans whispered that Davis walked the line between beloved entertainer and divisive figure.
Soak it in the sun and make a groovy lemon pie, the candy man.
On The Flip Wilson Show, Sammy's appearances were electric. He danced, he sang, and he joined Flip in sketches that mixed music with humor. But what made him evil in the sense of this story was his ability to charm while carrying a history of scandal and contradiction. Lots of fans think that his presence forced viewers to face their own prejudices, whether about race, love, or celebrity. Even though nothing is proven, all evidence suggests that Sammy knew exactly how controversial he was, and he leaned into it with style. Together, Moms Mabley and Sammy Davis Jr. proved that controversy and entertainment could live side by side. They weren't evil in the literal sense. Their evil was in how fearlessly they broke rules, how they unsettled norms, and how they carried truths into America's living rooms under the cover of comedy and charm. But as history remembers, this wasn't just a list of names. It was a collection of cultural earthquakes. Muhammad Ali, Richard Pryor, Lily Tomlin, Joe Namath, Jim Brown, Moms Mabley, and Sammy Davis Jr. Together, they redefined what television could risk and what it could reveal.